Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Beyond Product podcast. My name is Moshe Mikanovsky, and I'm your host. For those of you who are watching us, you will notice that today we're meeting in person, and there is a good reason for that. Our guest is a startup at DMZ, one of the leading incubators in Toronto, and a partner and a friend of Root Quotient and the podcast. DMZ invited us to use their studio, so thank you, DMZ, for your hospitality. My guest today is Calvin Benchimol, co-founder and CEO of Crewscope. Calvin has close to 2 decades of experience in the construction industry, and he knows intimately some of the challenges that this industry is facing. This is where his passion to build a Crewscope started. Crewscope is a simple site planning and collaboration product for industrial field teams, solving the problem of ad hoc planning, verbal communication, and misaligned incentives between project outcomes and hourly trades. Crewscope was built in the field with industry leaders such as Lafarge Holcim and Elliston. Since launching, Crewscope has won several accolades: the Building Transformation Innovation Award, Site News Top 25 Innovators in Construction, High-Tech Pitch Competition winner, as well as becoming an Elliston Strategic Technology Partner. Welcome to the podcast, Calvin.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Perfect. So I'm really excited to have you over here, and I love being, in person over here in the DMZ studio.
Yeah, it's a great space.
I know it is a great space, and first time I'm using it for our podcast. So hopefully I will use it more with more of the DMZ founders. But tell me about yourself. Tell me about how you got to what you're doing today, and then we'll get into Crewscope.
Well, like you mentioned in the intro, thanks for the kind introduction. I've spent nearly 2 decades in the industry. I started right out of school at Lafarge. So I joined in one of these development programs. And for the first, I would say almost 5 years, I was in a strategy and consulting role, supporting the executive team. So we were doing a lot of market research, a lot of data analysis. And this was really where I got a lot of exposure to how corporate executives ran the business. There was a great discipline around weekly planning, KPIs, and measuring performance against these targets. And the entire leadership team was very locked in on how we create value for the business. After that, I moved into a frontline operations role. So I actually went to manage hourly frontline workers. We're delivering aggregates, and I was managing the logistics team. And I had experience working directly with the people that were running our business. So I was working with our scale operators, our shipping operators, our third party haulers, as well as our customers on our heavy civil job sites that we were delivering aggregates to. And this is where I really lived firsthand the gap between how the business was run from an executive point of view, and then how the hourly workers and what their experience was like on the front lines. And took a lot of my inspiration there just by living it for myself, and learned a tremendous amount in the process. After Lafarge, I wanted to pursue my entrepreneurial ambitions. I got a taste of building tech, and I saw the opportunity for introducing technology into the hourly space, into the hourly worker space, and joined the founder of eCompliance, their health and safety software company. We were serving high risk industries, and at the time, mobile phones were really just becoming ubiquitous. And we were one of the first to put safety software into the hands of the people doing the work, which was really a transformative innovation at the time. And I had a tremendous opportunity to work with some of the safest companies in the world. And then from there, we exited the business around the summer of just around COVID time, actually. And then I was thinking about what to do next, and that's where I came up with. That's when it was time to launch Crewscope.
Amazing. So it's really great that you have both the inside industry experience to see where the problems are, what people are actually experiencing or not experiencing because they don't have the right solutions for that. And then also being on the innovation side of the challenges of how do you get this type of product being adopted by the industry. So tell us a bit more about Crewscope. What is Crewscope is doing? And I know you have gone through a lot of discovery, and you found on the way things that worked and that didn't work. We'll talk about that as well, because I'm always really interested to hear that. But tell us first, what is it today?
So Crewscope is a simple site planning and communication software. We work directly with hourly field crews on industrial and construction sites. And we really just help the team focus on what's most important.
Yeah.
We help them take ownership over their own work plans. We help the team win together. I mean, from all of our research, we know that the best part of the job, as said by the hourly workers themselves, is working towards common goals and winning together as a team. So we really try to bring that out and bring some of that fun to work, and that fun of winning together. And it's really as simple as that. I mean, we can get into a little bit more around how we do things and sort of some of the insights. There's a lot of behavioral psychology that we've built into our reward and incentive program. And a lot of those insights have driven a lot of the UX decisions through the product. But at a high level, that's all that we're trying to do.
Yeah, and simplicity is one of the strategies you actually arrived to. It wasn't something that you started with, I believe, and then these days you told me simplicity is a strategy.
Absolutely.
Tell me a bit about that.
Well, when we were doing problem solution validation, it was quite clear that there was an immense problem amongst hourly workers themselves. So they're in short supply. There's a labor crisis that's been talking about for years, and it's a generational problem that's only getting worse. At the same time, we've seen a decline in productivity amongst hourly workers since the 1970s, and that's a whole other discussion. But under these macro contexts, we're really here to connect with the people doing the work. And to help bring the best out of them, because in our view, that's the solution to these macro challenges. We're not going to suddenly, have millions more skilled workers. They take time to develop and train, and it's difficult to organize them. And so we see the solution being one where we can support high performing teams to bring the best out of their people. And so now we're trying to solve this challenge that many have struggled to solve before us, which is, speaking to hourly workers. I mean, the environment is very challenging. They're distributed. There's a lot of language barriers. Project sites are quite large, and we know that the leadership layer that manages is quite busy doing hundreds of other things.
Yeah.
So the opportunity to connect with the people is the challenge, and so we're very sensitive about that, because many have come before us and have failed here, and so we took a really hard look at what they were doing that was working, but also where they were falling, and what we realized was that a lot of the solutions that came before us were just like too sophisticated. like they were doing some amazing things, and like the ideas were fantastic, but if you actually can't get the people to use them, or if they don't understand how it works, or if they don't trust you, then they'll never pick up your tool and you're dead.
Yes.
So we really keyed in very early on that we have to earn the trust of hourly workers. They are skeptical of company tools. They are skeptical that the big brother will use these tools to track them, to punish them, to push them harder, and really to treat them poorly. And this is there's a lot of baggage here, and it comes from a real place, right? I think that empathy of where this skepticism comes from is really important, because that has been how these hourly workers have been treated for decades, for generations, which is really that they're disposable, that they're here to perform a manual task that can be done by anybody. And really the role of the company is to push their people and really squeeze the most out of them. And so we really have to be empathetic in this environment, and how we're connecting with these people. And so back to your original point, something that's very simple, practical, and easy to understand, for us is really the first step to building their trust and to
Yeah.
getting them to pick up our
Yeah.
product.
It makes a lot of sense. Simplicity is a very important thing with actually a lot of products. We naturally doing it these days when we use smartphones, when we use Google. Well, these days it's all about GPT, but searching online and stuff like that. One of the things there is always about make it simple to the end users. It's the complexity is all behind the scenes. So there is still a lot of complexity in there, and I'm sure there is complexity also in Crewscope. But as long as you create it simple to the users, they will be able to adopt it in much better way. And the empathy that you're talking about is so important. So I really love that. There is also another thing that caught my attention when I learned about Crewscope, which is about the complexity of winning or getting in general not the trust of the users but also the trust of the organization, because at the end of the day you are selling to, it's a b2b, you're selling to the organization.
Yes.
And I've seen it also in the past when talking with other people in the construction and building industry that it's hard to get in. It's very hard to get in. So how did you break that mold? How do, or still breaking that mold?
So it doesn't matter what product you're selling. You're ultimately trying to change people's behavior, and that's tough. And like anything, you're going to look for your early adopters, the people that are that believe that there's a better way. They're optimistic. They're willing to try things that are not perfect yet or haven't been proven. So these are very special people, and those are always hard to find. So that's no different for us. I think the difference in the industrial and construction space is that, for one, this is a risky business, right? We're dealing with human lives and human health. So there's a lot of third-party relationships, and a lot of these third-party relationships have been designed to mitigate risk or push risk onto other parties. There's a macro context of thinning margins, so there's an aversion to trying something new. So the trick here, and we're still working through it, is really to start small, to build trust, and then to let our users speak for us. Because I mean, I can sell anything. I get very excited about this, and my passion comes through. I think all the time when I speak about it, but at the same time, people know that I'm trying to sell them something, and so the best, we're starting to see our users talk about it with their friends. We're starting to see other trades on site see what we're doing, like in real life, and I'm nowhere to be found, and the users are just using it naturally. They're talking about it, and there's an energy amongst our crews. Really coming down to like this common purpose and winning together, which is just really fun. And I think that's the best part of construction. Like when people talk about the good old days, and I'm talking about sort of the days before we had really strong risk controls on construction sites. I'm not saying that was a good thing. Okay, it's like it's very good that it's very important that we protect human life today. But there was a sense that we've lost something in the process there, which is the fun at work in construction. And when I talk about having fun on a construction site, the reaction was, oh, I have, this is dangerous work. It's not supposed to be fun. And our approach is, yes, it is dangerous, and we have to be safe, of course. And also, this is very meaningful and important work, and it's great to have a sense of joy and dignity and pride in our work. And so that's the piece that we're trying to focus on. And there, it doesn't matter what I say about that, because there's a skepticism, like I talked about already, around B2B tech. So it's for the users themselves to experience that firsthand and to share that organically. And so our approach is, again, to start small, let people try it, see what it is for themselves, and and then let the product speak for itself.
Yeah. Two really interesting points that you brought over there. One of them is selling it from within the team. So this is what we call in the industry product-led or product-led growth, that you start small and you not just that you start small, but you start with the people that actually need to use it. You make it affordable for them to be able to use it. And I believe that you have some pricing for that makes that work. And then they sell it within the organization for you, right? So it's a really interesting example of that in the construction industry, which I never thought, well, I'm not coming from that industry, so to me, I'm not that familiar with it. But it's really interesting to me to see that, because I usually see it in other industries, right? The second point was about fun versus safety. And is that something in the industry that it's always like two separate things? That if you have fun, it means you're not safe enough? Is that the thing?
I mean, it's not. No, it's not quite like that. I mean, fun in the industry typically involves a lot of social activities. So there's, they have meals together. There's family barbecues.
So after
there's
hours.
Events. That's right. Yeah. And there's a lot of camaraderie that comes along with working with a tight group of people. But you're right. During the day, while you're at work, while you're in this hazardous and high risk environment, of course, we're dealing with the most essential element, which is human life, and so we have to, and the risks are very, very real.
Yes.
It's tragic. It's tragic. The injuries and the fatalities that do occur, and
Absolutely.
we must do everything. And where I'm coming from is it's an evolution of this safety generation. So when I started at Lafarge, we're very much, Lafarge was at the forefront, and this is like sort of the early 2000s. Lafarge was at the forefront of leading this transformation in safety, where safety was a priority and safety was first, and Lafarge was investing huge money in both capital investments around their facilities, but also in process and organizational process to keep people safe. And this was this was a revolution. It was important. It saved a lot of people's lives and families, and it did a lot of good. I would say at this point now, the industry has come to a place where safety is, in most cases, safety is something that is essential, and people understand that everything must be done safely before we can do anything else. We have good process in place. There's good best practice that people can follow. There's good models, and the industry has become much safer, thankfully.
Right.
So now we're thinking about, okay, so what's next? Because what we're hearing from our users is that it's becoming a bit dull, actually. Maybe 20 years ago, this was the vanguard. It was new. Like, we're talking about really caring and taking care of people, and people could really get really motivated and excited about all of that. But now it's almost like we take it for granted, and it's getting a bit dull, and people are sort of tuning out some of these messages again. And it's like, so the next challenge for safety leaders, and I think for all of our industrial leaders, is, how do we refresh that thinking?
Yeah.
Like, how do we keep safety fresh in front of mind? And our approach to that is to build safety into a holistic work plan. So safety no longer exists separately from production, right? Today, you talk about safety, you make sure everything's safe, and then you talk about production and what you need to get done. Our approach is, well, let's talk about them together, safety and production. Safety is essential. But we're also here to build important infrastructure, and we need to get this infrastructure done. There's way more infrastructure than we have dollars or time or skilled people to build it. So how can we do both things? And both are essential. And we're not talking about compromising one or the other.
Right.
And so our approach is a holistic goal that includes safety, but one that's also really fun to achieve. It's fun to win. It's fun to be good. It's fun for teams to to be really high performing and to be very competent and capable, to work with colleagues that are, dialed in and bring their best craft every day. I mean, that is inspiring, and those are the kinds of teams that I love to be a part of myself personally. And so it's really fun to win.
Yeah.
And of course, you have to be safe to win.
Yeah.
And so that's where that's the idea that we're pushing through.
It makes a lot of sense. When you are too used to something, sometimes you don't pay attention to it anymore, and then the safety can go down. So it makes a lot of sense making it fresh and putting some new elements to that, as well as a holistic approach over there. Makes a lot of sense to me. You mentioned gamification. What type of gamification you have in there? Like, what are the things that they're competing on?
So, just for some context, we have site teams that are planning weekly goals. And those goals are being shared directly with the people doing the work. And as we're building, we're providing updates to the crew through text messages and our app. And so really just the first piece is just very simple. It's just, we have missions, we have goals, we have badges, so to say. We don't do it so cheesy in the app. It's still like a B2B industrial app, but the idea that you have you have a goal and you have an achievement is sort of built in, and over weeks you can achieve and build up a lot of your work history and your accomplishments as a worker. There's also a lot of like communication with our crews. So we give them a lot of updates about progress towards goals. When they hit those goals, they earn rewards, and these rewards can be converted for gift cards or for other types of recognitions inside of our app. So there's the sort of the basics there. Now with the leaders, the site leaders that are really driving the program, there's a lot here about frequency. Just like anything, just consistently following these like these fundamentals of good leadership, goal setting, communication with your team, helping them understand why, giving them feedback about how they're doing. These are really things that, this is just a daily practice for good leaders. And we celebrate that in our app with leaderboards and having our site leaders really compete, not so much on their output, so to say, but on their just their discipline of following these good leadership practices.
Yeah. And the results are talking. The data is talking. I've seen some of the results that you shared with me, and I want you to share with everyone, what the benefits that this is creating for those teams.
Yeah. So there's the hard numbers are outstanding. So, for example, we did a case study with Ellis Dawn on the Capitol Line in Edmonton. We were doing the underground utilities to make way for the light rail tracks. So we are moving the municipal water pipes and reinstalling them fresh. So this was a large team of over 20 workers, major infrastructure project. And what we found was that, first of all, this was an excellent team to begin with, right? They already had a good discipline of doing all those good things, but they were doing it verbally today, right? Very much, writing down goals on paper, talking to their team face to face. And so Crewscope just was an extension of what they're already doing well. It digitized it and just helped it make it really instant and fresh with the team. The rewards were meaningful, so we were paying out meaningful rewards in the neighborhood of about $200 per month per worker, which in the scheme of things, when we're talking about billions of dollars of infrastructure, this was which was relatively like nothing, but for the workers, they were significant. And through just following this just regular discipline through Crewscope and the rewards, we saved 8% on labor hours, which was transformative. And best of all, the crew loved it, right? So we got incredible labor savings, but the crew was happy about it. And it wasn't that they were out there like setting these like really ambitious goals that were otherwise, unachievable before Crewscope. On the contrary, they were setting the same kinds of goals as they would normally, but because we just brought the focus and the constant communication with the crew around these goals, it just naturally, the crew was just naturally starting to think more about production. And that was some of the feedback we got from the site leaders was, before they had the attitude of whatever happened was fine. But now they're thinking about production. They were thinking about how much time they had left, and they were
Mm-hmm.
thinking about ways on, how could they get ahead a little bit, or how
Mm-hmm.
could we all take a little bit more initiative. And so it
Mm-hmm.
was really like this sort of like groundswell, like this bottom up type of. I mean, they use the term of like bottom up pressure or peer pressure.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't quite like that. It was more just that the team was, they like to win, and they have a clear goalpost, and they're going to score for
Mm-hmm.
sure. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're all trying to look out for each other to say, what else can we do?
Yes. Yes.
And we're not talking about just like some like major transformation. We're just talking about finding a few minutes every day from a few people over the course of a few weeks. We were actually there for 8 or 9 months. And it adds up to 8% labor
Absolutely.
savings,
Yeah.
which is transformative.
Absolutely. Absolutely. From coming from the product world, I'm always thinking about outcomes. Did it also, and just to add on that a bit more, I'm thinking about outcomes as in the teams know what the outcomes are and what they're trying to achieve and the why behind them, and therefore they can perform much better. Is that also something that can work in that industry,
Absolutely.
or that you have seen with that team?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, having your team understand why their work matters
Mm-hmm.
is absolutely essential, especially
Mm-hmm.
today. And this is something new. I mean, you say that and it's almost obvious, and I'm sure
Yeah.
a lot of us will take that for granted. But on a construction site for generations, it's been, what does a good week look like? Well, you got paid for your hours. That's a good week.
Mm-hmm.
You made an honest living,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of whatever happens is fine.
Yeah.
You got paid, just show up and put in your time. But not so much anymore. I mean, expectations of work are changing, especially with younger workers coming into the industry.
Mm.
More and more, we hear workers express how, first of all, they love construction, they love building with their hands, and they intrinsically understand why roads and roads are important to
Yes.
society.
Yes.
So there's just like that. I mean, construction is great that way. The work is inherently meaningful, and we can connect with why it's important. But
Mhm.
the individual workers themselves want to know how their contribution to the team
Yes.
matters.
Yes.
And when the leader comes up with this deadline to say we need to have the pipes installed to milestone 58 by the end of the week, was that an arbitrary deadline, or like, why does that matter? How does that create value for the project?
Yeah.
And so more and more we're seeing that workers really need to know why and how they create value, how they contribute, and how they're essential to their team.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm agreeing with you, but
Yeah.
but I mean, it is a generational change that's happening in industrial sites today.
I'm really excited for you because this seems to be like a transformative place to be in that industry. Let's move on to your journey as a founder, because
Okay.
that's the other thing that we're always interested on the podcast, to learn from you a bit more about the good things, the bad things, the ugly things. Like what did you learn through the process? You're dealing with a very specific industry, and there is of course, you were trying to build something for the industry, and then there is the investors on the other end that are trying to get their investments return. Is there things that you're learning there that are specifically not working or working in that industry?
It's, I mean, different worlds. When you're talking to investors and you're talking to customers and users, you're selling, but you're selling in a completely different kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was something that, I mean, just in my own personal sales journey. I mean, this is the first like true pure sales role that I've held. I mean, I've sold plenty of things before this, but never in such just an outright fashion. And it's a skill, it's a discipline, it's something that
Mm-hmm.
I've been practicing a lot. But coming down to like selling to your different audiences, I mean, when you're selling to customers, we talked about trying to make it simple to try, easy to start, trying to reduce the risk, trying to find those early adopters, and really helping them, just see for themselves and get them to just put it in their hands and give it a go. When you're talking to investors, it's an entirely different kind of story. I mean, for one, we're early stage, so it's not like we have like these really hard business metrics yet that they can evaluate and value a business. So at these early stages, it's really a lot about relationship and trust, but it's also about sort of the inspiration about where this thing can be, like how big can this thing be. And there's no doubt trends in the industry. Investors tend to follow trends. They tend to follow what other people are doing. So it is very special to find an investor that is willing to, again, be an early adopter, to come out and identify something that's special that no one else has identified yet, because everyone else is wondering, well, if this is such a great idea, why hasn't someone else picked it up first?
Right.
So it's, in that sense, you are really looking for that, for those special people that believe. But it's also part of the founder's journey to really talk about, the future, like where is this going? And that's something that, I've been practicing and still have a ways to go. But it's how do you bridge this like sort of simple solution with this transformative generational change that we're going to lead on an industrial site. And, really it takes, we do need to be strategic. So there's only, a lot of generalist investors are not necessarily empathetic to the problem that we're solving. So I think that was an early learning early on, which was to find investors that like industrial construction tech, or they like legacy businesses, or they have some empathy for hourly skilled workers. Not many people do. So I think we learned that lesson pretty quick, which was to just try to find investors that have some experience in the space.
Yeah.
And then really is where is this going next? Because we have a simple solution. It is a thin edge of the wedge. But what's next from that? And then how do we paint out that picture?
Yeah. So what's your big vision for the future?
Well, that's it. So we imagine a future where Crewscope is the platform for hourly workers to get work, to get paid, and to develop their skills in their career. So we see it as a passport to all forms of industrial skilled work. Today, there's a lot of friction to getting into the industry, to navigating, to developing your skills, but to finding jobs, to qualifying your work, but also to really to rise up. I mean, to rise up and take on more roles, more responsibilities. And so we see Crewscope as an incredible tool for workers themselves on how they can be introduced into the industry, how they can get experience, and how they can use that experience to build their skills. And build their work. But on the company side, there's a tremendous opportunity with the data that we're capturing. We know that construction and industrial firms really struggle to learn from their past experience, and that there's a huge gap between the way that work is imagined in the office and that it's performed in the field. And we see the data that we're collecting from our clients as really a transformative revolution where we can structure the data. We have a patented back-end data model, and we can feed that into our AI prototypes, which are developing now, that can help forecast and anticipate work. And for anyone who's not familiar with how things are done today, we're using very simple averages, and these simple averages are being applied to pieces, to estimating pieces of work that perhaps have nothing to do with the average at all. It's way more complicated. For example, the environment is way different. The crew is different. I mean, you name it. There are all these variables that are not being considered right now when we are trying to plan work. And if they are being factored in somehow, those assumptions are in somebody's head in the office, and they are not being brought to life with the people that are actually doing the work. And so there's an incredible disconnect now, which causes a lot of frustration, a lot of delays, a lot of cost overruns. It's expensive. And so we see a tremendous opportunity to use the data, like real, like contextualized data from real experience, including the human expertise that is that is rare, especially as this expertise is retiring out of the industry, so that we can capture this human expertise, this annotate this data, and then help companies learn from themselves and bring this data to life for future projects and future activities, which is the future. For sure it is, and that's all going to be driven by really good data, by really great AI forecasting models that can help translate this data and connect it to the work that we're doing in the future.
Yeah.
And of course, this becomes mission critical. So as we scale and as this data set becomes more powerful, we will have the best baselines of productivity rates by different contexts and geographies and crews, and can even help companies build better, by suggesting and by looking at past examples of how they've done it in the past, and how they can replicate these ideas in the future.
That's very interesting. Coming from the software world, we always have difficulties of estimation and creating. You probably know that now from being head of a software company. Estimating how long it will take us to develop something. We came up with Agile through the last few decades to try to solve that. And project management is something we always, at least me personally, always thought, oh, this came from construction. They know already how they do everything. It's easy for them. So, but like you were saying, it's probably I don't have the right empathy to that industry, and you know exactly where that gap is. So that sounds like a huge but really important problem to solve, and kudos for that. Finally, for other founders that are listening to us over here, is there one tip that you would give them, something that you learned through this process that you wish you were told when you started? I know most of my guests are usually saying more than one thing, because there is always a lot of learning, so feel free.
Just the one thing. I mean, it's hard to pick one thing that someone had told me before. Actually, there is actually one thing, which is that there's lots of ways to build your company. I think that I was coming into this. I thought that the only way to build it was with a venture-backed business, and we made some we made some design decisions very, very early on that sort of forced that path for us. But as we've been building this out, and as we've been learning a lot more about our clients and the investors, especially the economic conditions at the time, and I've realized that there's lots of different ways to build your company, and a lot of and the way that you finance your business has very dramatic impacts on the kind of business you build. But that it also should be aligned with the way that you build your business. Venture-backed companies demand fast growth, but that's not the only way. And so, for example, finding some really passionate customers that are aligned with your vision, they will pay up front. And I know that it's hard to believe. And maybe when I was early on in my entrepreneurial journey, I didn't believe that anyone would pay me up front for basically like arts and crafts and PowerPoint, but they did. And so it was one of those things that, I didn't think that it was possible until we were there. And knowing what I know now, I would certainly consider alternatives to how to finance the business and the kinds of partners that you bring in early on that are really aligned with the kind of business that you want to build.
Right. Well, that's a great tip. And I'm sure it will be helpful for someone, because this is the thing that we, as entrepreneurs, we always have to learn from others. Like you said, in your industry, in the construction industry, they don't learn enough from the past. Here we have the opportunity to learn from other people, so why not, right? Amazing. To wrap it up, what would be, we will share where people can connect with you, etc. But if there was one thing that you would like to share out there for something you're asking for, or if people want to connect with you, what would you like to talk with them about?
Well, we're always looking to meet with like-minded individuals. I mean, especially for industrial and construction firms. I mean, if you're in a role where you're empathetic to connect with your people on the ground and to help them rise up and achieve their full potential,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, we'd love to chat. We're all about building high performing teams in the field, and at these early stages, we're really looking for the leaders that are going to transform the industry, and it's going to be transformed by really that daily discipline of trying to be better every day and focusing on just strong leadership and bringing the best out of our people.
Mm-hmm.
We're raising capital right now. We're just about to close our pre-seed round. We
Mm-hmm.
have our lead investor with a sector specialist,
Mm-hmm.
and we have the terms. So
Great.
we're looking for aligned investors that are also passionate about the future that we're bringing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if this podcast will come out after we've closed it or before, but
Mm-hmm.
we are certainly looking for inspired investors that have strong relationships in the industry and strong empathy for hourly skilled workers in the field, and
Mm-hmm.
we'd love to chat with them as well.
And if it's not this round, then the future rounds, because I'm sure there is always more space to grow.
Of course.
Yes. Thank you so much, Calvin. This was great. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you very much, everyone. This is Moshe from Beyond Product. I'm looking forward to more episodes. Write to us. Tell us how we're doing. Tell your friends about the podcast. And we'll see you next time.